But instead of saying his prayers, our cheeky red-haired rodent forces his finger into the barrel, and the hunter's best-laid plans backfire big time.
What's up, guys? It's boy Benny. Imagine that you were playing on a sports team and you went in to score the game-winning goal, and you effed up so badly that your entire team turned on you in the locker room and beat you with bars of soap and pillowcases. That is precisely what is happening to the Maine Secretary of State right now, who decided by herself, even though she's not an attorney, who decided, even though Donald Trump has never been tried or even charged for insurrection, that she's going to take Donald Trump unilaterally off the ballot, even though she's not even an elected official in Maine. That's right. She's an appointed official. Yeah, it's not looking great for Shanna Bellows. So Shanna Bellows, who is a far left-wing absolute Marxist and a psychotic lunatic, Trump derangement syndrome tested positive freak, who, like, as you go through all of her past posting on social media, reminds you that the most dangerous thing in all of America are liberal, unhappy white ladies. Man, these people are the greatest threat to our country. She is having a very, very bad time because after making this decision, she has had so many people turn on her and so many people say, what the what? I mean, we don't like Trump. But hot damn, lady, like, this is not the way you go about this kind of business, including, but not limited to, both of the senators in Maine who have released statements, okay? Both of the senators in Maine, including two senators who hate Donald Trump, right? Senators who literally voted to impeach Donald Trump. These are not Trump-friendly people. Senator Susan Collins, who voted to convict Trump, second impeachment, condemned her decision to take Trump off the ballot. Angus King, who caucuses with Democrats, has condemned the decision to take off the ballot. And Jared Golden, a Democrat congressman, has condemned her decision to take Trump off the ballot. My statement on the Maine Secretary of State barring Donald Trump from 2020 primary ballots, Angus King. Under the established constitutional process, the Senate will be called upon to determine the precise question of Donald Trump's impeachment trial in January 2021, which I voted with a bipartisan majority to convict. 2/3 of the Senate did not. Although I respect the Maine Secretary of State's careful process, which she was specifically required to undertake under Maine law, absent a final judicial determination of violation of the 14th Amendment disqualification clause, I believe that the decision is to whether or not Mr. Trump should again be considered for the presidency should rest on the people as expressed by a free and fair election, the ultimate check within our constitutional system. So he just says, go F yourself to this lady. And man, she's been doing some media interviews, and holy smokes, this Shanna Bellows was not ready for prime time, let's just say.
I am so mindful, and I said this in my decision, that it is unprecedented. No Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. But no presidential candidate has ever engaged in insurrection and been disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
Look at the face. Look at the face of the CNN anchor. It's like, and that's John Berman. And he's like, say what now? Like, so he hasn't been charged, nor has he been disqualified, nor actually he went through a Senate trial, as Angus King says, and he was found not guilty. So in fact, he's been exonerated of these charges. More than like not being charged, he's been exonerated of these charges. That CNN clip is just absolutely cringeworthy and brutal, and it makes your skin crawl, but it gets even worse. ENN's senior legal analyst, Ellie Honig, said that the Maine Secretary of State based her ruling on YouTube clips. This is amazing watch.
Were the processes, were these hearings fair? Did they comport with due process? And I think there's a question there with regard to what Maine did, because if you look at the hearing, and she details this in the ruling, they heard from one fact witness, a law professor. She based her ruling on a lot of documents, but also YouTube clips, news reports, things that would never pass the bar in normal court. She's not a lawyer, by the way. It's a smartly written decision, clearly consulted with lawyers, but this is an unelected. She's chosen by the state legislature.
She's elected by the
chosen, elected by the legislature, but not democratically elected. Not a knock. That's just the way it's set up in Maine. And this hearing, look, it doesn't have to be a criminal trial. We don't have to have all the protections. But I think the argument you'll hear from opponents is, one, not up to the states to do this. This is why we have all different decisions from all different states. And two, the procedures were not up to snuff.
Yeah, okay, so, dude, listen, if the Democrats from your state, like the only federally elected offices from the states of Maine, are coming after you for this and saying this is absolute banana republic bullshit, then you got a problem. Now, what are the Republicans in Maine doing? Well, Republican lawmakers in Maine are now filing impeachment of the Secretary of State, Shenna Bellows, for a decision to disqualify Trump from the ballot. Bellows reveals she's been receiving death threats. Oh, yes, of course. Like, literally, I'm not saying that this is okay or good, right? But what I'm saying is the next step is to play the victim card, right? So do egregious, unspeakable thing, then say you're the victim. That's the playbook. Doesn't matter if it's the actress trying to play Snow White. Make insufferable and breathtakingly stupid decision, say or do incredibly stupid thing, and then claim that you're the victim. This is the modern day playbook, okay? Shenna Bellows, the Secretary of State of Maine, on Thursday announced that she had concluded that Donald Trump was ineligible to appear on the ballot by herself, even though she's unelected and even though she's not a lawyer. Trump's spokesperson accused her of election interference Friday, and Republican House Maine filed to seek her impeachment. John Andrews argued that she has exceeded her authority and that by her rationale, Joe Biden should be blocked from helping an enemy, Iran and China. So stating effectively that Joe Biden is an insurrectionist because, well, he's opened up our border and because he's helped our geopolitical enemies. A Maine Republican has filed notice of intent to impeach the Secretary of State, accusing her of overstepping her authority by removing Donald Trump from the state ballot and arguing that by her rationale, Joe Biden should also be removed. John Andrews was elected in 2008, Maine House Representatives. He, on Friday, filed a request to the Maine Revisory's office saying he would file a joint order, whichever is the proper parliamentary mechanism under Mason's rules to impeach Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. Bellows on Thursday announced Trump was disqualified from their state primaries for voting section. The other thing that I think is really important here is to call out, obviously, the fake news here. There's fake news as it pertains to this Secretary of State who just absolutely loves clasping hands, sniffing Joe Biden. This is the only person that looks like she's sniffing Joe Biden. Really, really terrifying. You can see here in her ruling that her ruling is fake. Just like in Colorado, who's put Donald Trump right back on the ballot. So Donald Trump's right back on the ballot. Just like in Colorado, this ruling is fake. Given the compressed time frame, the novel constitutional questions involved in the importance of the case and pending ballot deadlines, I will suspend the effect of my decision until the Superior Court rules on any appeal or the time to appeal under 12A. Section 337 has expired. So she's saying effectively that Donald Trump, who instantly appeals this decision, then her decision doesn't matter. Again, it's all a smokescreen. All of this is a smokescreen. So she's going to get impeached for this. Hopefully, Republicans do not have control of the legislature in Maine. Very sadly, this is, of course, again, what happens with open criminal immigration. They've utterly changed the demographics and the voting priorities and makeup of Maine. And so now Maine had gone from a consistently red state to a Democrat state. But ladies and gentlemen, even that, I think, is breaking down right now. Republicans do represent Maine federally, and this is what one of those Republicans had to say as it pertains to impeaching the Secretary of State.
Let's bring in Maine GOP State Representative John Andrews, who filed a motion to impeach the Maine Secretary of State. He joins us now. John, good morning to you. I don't think before this many people outside of the state of Maine knew who Shenna Bellows was. So let's start by you telling us about who she is and your effort to impeach her.
Well, in Maine, the people do not elect the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, or the Treasurer. They are chosen by party insiders in the legislature. So it makes the position inherently political, and Shenna Bellows should know that. She should be going out of her way to be nonpartisan. But with this edict, Shenna Bellows has unilaterally disenfranchised 300,060 Maine voters with this partisan move. Our nation is a republic. Maine is made up of citizens and not subjects in the duchy of Shenna Bellows. But keeping people they don't like off the ballot is nothing new for Democrats. They did it to Abraham Lincoln. They did it in the Jim Crow Reconstruction South. Over the decades, the Democratic Party hasn't really changed. They've just gotten much better at public relations.
John, you used a key word there, disenfranchisement. And if you look back, a Twitter, now known as X, post from Bellows in January of 2022, she said this, The fundamental right of any American citizen to vote freely, fairly, and to have their vote counted is the premise of our democracy. The Constitution and Bill of Rights are not values to be compromised away, but yet she is not giving those voters the right to vote for their candidate, which it appears that Mr. Trump is the front runner to be the nominee in your state. So is she consumed with, drunk with power of her office, or is there some way you can connect those two opposing statements?
Well, they've repeatedly cited the 14th Amendment, Section 3, and under Shenabello's new standard, you could argue that President Biden be barred due to Section 3, with the statement of giving aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. I'd argue that releasing billions to Iran and selling our strategic oil reserves to Chinese interests could qualify that if no convictions are required under Shenabello's new rules. And that's why this is such a dangerous game that she's created.
John, I spend a lot of time in Maine. I've got friends up there in northern Maine. I know the state from the areas I go to pretty well, which is that there are a lot of conservatives, maybe not Republican voters, but conservative Americans in the state of Maine. Your state house is broken down, favors Democrats pretty heavily, but a healthy amount of Republicans. The Senate, a little bit wider margin there. And you've got a Democrat governor. What are the repercussions if this Secretary of State goes through with this and it isn't settled legally? What are the voters in Maine going to think about it?
She opened the door to election chaos. I really don't think that we can have somebody as partisan as Shenabello as being in charge of our elections going forward. I think even extremely progressive Democrat Jared Golden said that she's in the wrong, that he doesn't like Trump, but he should be on the ballot. And I applaud him for saying that, because he's correct. It's the right move. And Shenna is trying to jockey herself for the 2026 governor Democratic primary. I'm sure this will be made into a fundraising email in the years to come. I'd put money on that.
Yeah, you're right. This is getting bipartisan criticism from both Democrats and Republicans. What are the people of Maine saying to you? I know that this just happened, but have you spoken to any voters?
I was up till about 1 last night answering every phone call I got, and the voters of Maine have had enough. I think for the first time in a long time, we have a real shot at a Republican majority in this state. And I would urge everybody out there, even independents who lean conservative, get out there, vote Republican. You know, I like Ramaswamy and all the things he's been saying, but I think everybody in Maine now is all aboard the Trump train. Let's go.